That didn't work either.
I think that's just permanently your voice.
Dude, I need to... Oh, man. Can somebody help me? Turn off the
There's no
Bluetooth.
help for
You're
you.
kind of beyond that.
Yeah, I think...
You're lost, cause.
I think it's your turn, Brian.
Oh, there you
You're
go.
good. Oh, boy. boys and their toys. Nice. They're like, what did you do for the first 2 hours filming your show?
This is
I actually
it.
want us to sing Christmas carols with all of our voices like this.
Feeding when I can.
I can't even remember how it came up or why I had the thought that I ended up calling this guy. And
Well, should we welcome?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll just.
Well, I didn't know they were there. I mean, I didn't even hear him come in. Hi, how are you?
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the circle.
The
Welcome
third
to the
episode.
circle. Yeah, it's number 3.
Good work.
So we were talking about. So when we brought up identity crisis during actually the first one. And I've been really thinking about that lately because the biggest thing I hear people say is they lose or they have no purpose anymore. Like, what's my purpose? And I had a problem with that because I started looking at myself and, as officers, we have a lot of narcissistic tendencies. It becomes about us, but it's almost a necessity because you have to be confident. You have to be, keep up on the law. You have to be basically a squared away person to be effective, right? So there is a little bit of arrogance that comes with that. It's if you don't keep that in check, it gets out of control. So I can see how the job gives us purpose, but the one common denominator, and this is what I was telling Brian about, is we really, without even knowing it, become about just us. And it doesn't even turn it, like when people leave the job, right? All I hear, and I told Brian this, is, what am I going to do now? Me. I. It's not about, I need to serve somehow. I got to find a way. It's not, at least, I'm going to get to spend time with my kids or my family or the people I've been ignoring all this time. It's still about me. And I don't even think we realize we do that. I didn't realize I did that. I went back and I started to pay attention to, I remember what I was telling people. And I was like, I was doing that too. I was saying it was about me. And think about this. Think about the poor kids in the corner who think they finally have dad home. And you're still talking about you. And you're going to now leave town or go find a job. And it's still about you because you have to have a purpose. So, and I'm just going to kind of finish the thought to see where we kind of ended up with what I was telling Brian. You know, if your purpose in life is for you to have a purpose or something to do to satisfy your narcissistic tendencies or your ego, then maybe it's time to take a step back and really evaluate what it is you really miss. Because we've even had conversations in the past, and you ask people, what do they miss? The camaraderie. Okay. Who's checked on you? Nobody. Who have you checked on? Nobody. But if they get a job like as a range master, they still fulfilled. I think it's about being relevant. So I thought about this. I said, you know, what is our purpose now, right? Well, for me, I want to leave behind a legacy. I don't want to leave behind a legacy that I was a cop for so many years and I did this. You guys know how competitive everybody wants to be Billy Badass out there. You're never going to be the best ever, okay? You should do it with, integrity and have good work ethic, but I know what everyone wants to be the best. But I want my kids to remember me. So, and they're not going to, I had to do a lot of fixing things when I realized that. My son finally asked me after 20-something years, why didn't you ever talk about work? But anyway, so I thought about it and I said, the biggest present I can give my children or the people I care about is my presence. And not only my presence at the moment, because that is important, but I want to be present when I'm not around in their mind. I wanted them to finally say, well, what would my dad do? What would my dad do? And I bet you there's a handful of people out there who don't even think about that, don't even acknowledge it. And I thought about that too, because how many times has somebody been telling you by their actions, I love you, and we walk right by it like it doesn't exist? That shirt's folded, your clothes are washed, your food's made, and we just grab it like it's expected, So that's kind of where the thought started. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
So I still have little issues with that word narcissism because I think it's overplayed. It's not disagreeing with you. It's just, I think, a lot of times you hear when it comes to physicians and stuff, there's a God complex that they get because they have life and death in their hands all the time. And then I think when law enforcement comes, I would rather say it's like almost an immortal complex combined with what Brian touched on the first episode, where you're constantly put in that line of fear. I want to eat or I want to write a report. I got to put my patrol car to the back of a block like wall, make sure nobody can get behind me because somebody might kill me if I got to position myself at the door. So you're constantly put in that threat assessment. So yeah, you do become completely self-absorbed, not necessarily maybe narcissistic, where you are primary because you're there. And I do feel then it gets carried over because when you go home, you can't turn it off. It's that symbiote that you describe. You've become that. This uniform is stuck to me. It doesn't matter whether I take it on or off. You're trained and you're spending more of your time when you're working 410s and then getting pulled in on a couple other shifts, plus then you're getting held over every day. You're spending more life being, the T-1000 than you are being the dad at home. So shutting that off and being able to separate those two things, I think we do a disservice that we're not training people in the academy how to do that, how to transition. When I noticed my youngest was having trouble with transitions between divorce, going from one house to the next, it was always rough that day. You always knew it was going to be rough. So then we started taking plans of how to do a more transition when she's going from her mom's house to my house and vice versa, giving her more time, giving her warnings. Well, we don't get the warning, and we're not even taught to think that way, right? Because we had said last time, if you're having issues, everybody backs, well, no, we can't talk about that, right? So, you know what I mean? I think there is something that can be done with that. From my perspective, that, there were times where it's like, I want to spend time with my family, but then you are thinking about work. You can't. It's constantly in those. If you're a computer and those back windows constantly running in the playground in the back, so you're not fully there. And I agree with you 100%. But is it narcissism, or is it because that's what happens?
Well, if I said if I meant to say narcissistic tendencies, because to be a true narcissist, you lack empathy or sympathy.
Yeah.
So I meant tendencies. If I didn't clarify that, and here's the problem. Why I also brought it up, and I'm guilty of this too. And I think Brian said it too, and one other person I think called Ralph, and I said, hey, when did you ever not want to go somewhere? And you use the fact that self-importance that, because people are forced to respect what we do, including our family. Mm-hmm. It's public service. I was working all night. I'm tired. I dealt with bad guys. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, I can't go because I have to work, or I'm on call, or I'm really tired. I worked late last night. And what do? Right? Okay, I understand. Mm-hmm. Have we ever used that when it was not true? And I have. I'll be honest, I have. And I felt like a kind of like a douche. And this is not about pointing out the problem so we can all do something about it. It's just about self-awareness.
Yeah.
And like I said, about narcissism too, if you truly believe somebody's a narcissist, this is what I ask people. Have you told them? Because maybe they would like to change it. Maybe they don't know they're doing that, right? So I agree with you on that.
Well, I am in agreement with narcissistic tendencies. So, like for me, I was the center of my universe. They teach you to work in a team environment, but also our original employer taught us to be solo operators, and your training, how you conduct your calls for service, all that is centered around us individually, right? Because you are taught to operate just by yourself. Don't rely on anybody else. There are going to be times when you're going to be by yourself and you have to do everything. So for me, I became the center of my universe through the training. And then it spills over into the home life, right? You get home, you can't shut the job off. You're tired because where we came from, we worked more than a decade of mandatory overtime. Over 10 years, we were ordered in on our days off to work. So you don't get a chance to shut it off. So you continue to be this person in this symbiotic suit, so to speak. And then when it's time to go do things with family, for me, I was exhausted. I was tired. And there were times when, there were a few times where I used that excuse, like, hey, I'm tired from work, or I just, I worked late or whatever. I can't go to the family gathering or to the movies or to the baseball game or whatever. I'm just, I'm tired. And over a period of time, it became a crutch, right? It was a good excuse not to go and function in society, because functioning in society became overwhelming at times. You're so used to being in a certain environment when you're doing your job, and it becomes a us versus them mentality, right? And going and being out in public became difficult at times. The people acting foolish, like, you go to a rock concert, or you go to a concert and it's packed and people are bumping into you, and, we're not used to that through our employment. Somebody should not get close enough to bump into you, right? And so those type of things became overwhelming, or people just making stupid decisions, sitting right next to you and lighting up a marijuana pipe or whatever back in the day when it was illegal, those sort of things. I found it overwhelming, and I just didn't want to be in that position to deal with that and try to squash what I was feeling, and keep it in check.
There's a couple of things there that, number one, it could be even for...
It never, ever occurred to me till she said something that I should have called to check on her. Our Lifeline. literally the people, the voices in the dark, we forget
the
them.
real first responder, yeah.
Yeah, we forget them all the time. So, I mean, we just had national dispatchers.
Well, we want to have Bee back. She's awesome, and there's a couple other dispatchers that we want to have on the show. Can't wait for that. She listens all the time, and we actually have a good following from dispatchers from the Canadians. It's awesome, man.
No, and they're phenomenal, and I don't. I felt terrible that I somehow I excluded, didn't even. But again, you can only deal with so many perceptions in your own mind, and I agree with you. Yeah, we do get. But I think if we still have that empathy, or we can pass that on, that we can realize we could actually change some of that and say, hey, you know, maybe there's a routine or something we can come up with to help deal with those processes, especially the family. You know, I think that we owe it to ourselves, and that's what we want to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of healing that, you know, I look back on time and it's like, man, I owe so many people an apology for years and years of, and I can't say I knew I was doing this. It wasn't intentional at times, but because it became so routine and expected, and how I felt was important, right? And it was just unfair behavior. It just was, and it was just I can't say I have regrets. I learned now. You know, I don't believe you should ever have like a total regret in life, because it's a learning opportunity, right? But I'm kind of close to there because I missed out on so much. But there's the other flip side of that. I also got tired of defending myself every time I went to a barbecue, and they're talking about, why did that cop do that in New York? And and you're introduced as the cop, Mm-hmm. And like, you know, I don't want to. I'm John, man. Just relax. I'm here to have fun, you know. Mm-hmm. So you kind of avoid that situation too. And I remember just avoiding going, just because I don't want to defend what Dexter did in Connecticut, you know, who had 2 years on. I didn't. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like it that night. So, I mean, there's so many sides of the spectrum of this, but at the end of the day, if we bring it to just self-awareness, what have you done, or what are you doing now that are you intentionally ignoring those around you that absolutely love you? And, you know, time is the one thing we spend that we can't get back. You know? Mm-hmm. You just can't. So,
well, what I've been doing is just trying to be present for the people that are in my life, and trying to be present for the things like my kids' softball and volleyball games, that sort of thing. I never went to any of those when I was on the job, you know, because, again, there's crowds, or you're tired. Or sometimes you would get, you know, mad at the ref for calling a stupid call. Like, come on, ref, are you kidding? You need my glasses, you know?
My brother's an umpire, man. So, yeah, poor guy. Hey, Jamie, sorry, bro.
He threw you down. He said he didn't like being thrown down as a cop, but he's like, he's an umpire. Okay, so Jamie, why is it that
he's got too much power? I've seen that guy kick, like, people out. Like, they listen to him, man. The cops will come, they don't care.
Right.
But if Jamie gets mad, they're like, all right, calm down, dude. They're going to kick us all out.
They'll shut the game down. Yeah.
So, you know, now that the job's gone, and I realize what is important, most important in life, and that's family. And so I've really been focused on that. And sometimes it's been work, you know, coming out of my comfort zone, right? Being in crowds of people. And it's super noisy, music's really loud, you know, people bumping into you. But, you know, so just doing the things that are important, right? Now that the job is gone, and they're and you know, I don't have that there, right? So it's really allowed me to focus on, you know, that I had my priorities wrong, right?
I'm loving it. See, and you're using all the correct words. Allowed me to, and I'll be honest, I'm going to back that up 100%. Since he started, you know, really looking at everything, he's been 100% into his kids, man. Mm-hmm. You know, half the time he can't do the shit I ask him to because he's got to go pick up his daughter or something, and it's like, man, she wins again.
You know,
I just picture you like Hulk, man. You grab a wrench and snap the. Oh, sorry. Get another one.
I put like a breaker bar on it and stuff to get, you know, more power behind it, and something's gonna give. When you got bolts that are rusted shut, something's,
Well,
something.
maybe you could play with the segue on this. So a wrench, right? It's a wrench. It's old. It's passed down generations, kind of like our family, right? We just mentioned how we've caused this friction and we've broken things. I actually went back and sat my kids down, and I've talked to them in a group and then individually. And it's so weird that even yesterday, I sent them this video where it's about me apologizing for the things that I did, for the ability to say, I only had so many tools on my tool belt, and some of them were not as functional. That's all I had left. So I did what I could at the time, and I went and I said, I apologize for not being the dad I should have been, or not knowing enough, or not doing this. I said, and I hope from my experiences, my failures, and my heartache and my pain that you learn, but also from my successes, and if anything, the fact that I have that persistent perseverance to continue to go through, because that perseverance means in the face of adversity. And there was a saying this guy said, he says, life is about, a set of circumstances. When you hear the word circumstances, it doesn't say they're good or bad.
Nope.
They can come from adversity and everything else, but what you do with it, right? The other saying is, what is it? Life is 90% of, or 10% of what happens to you, but 90% of how you deal with it and what you do with those things. So in the face of adversity, I want them to succeed. And I said, I want you each to do better than me. Don't say, my dad's been divorced 3 times, I'm going to fail. No, you're going to do something better. You're you, and you do you.